Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the Upper Tier Podcast. We have reached the final episode of Dark Side of the Ring Season 5, Episode 10, Black Saturday, the rise of Vince McMahon. And what a way to round out a season with everything that's going on in Vince McMahon's world at the moment. But this was a very, very interesting one. I'm sure it's a story that most of you know, but, starts off with gives us a background to Vince taking over WWF, buying it in 1982, and this is where it all began, really, didn't it? In terms of the dissolving of the territories in the old NWA, the mafia that it was called back then, and stuff like that. And they talk about how the heads of the NWA would meet and the council and all that kind of stuff, and it's absolutely crazy. It said, what the Jim Cornette described it as the mafia without the bodies. Basically, you might pick up a black eye or a bit of a dust up, but basically you wouldn't get murdered and stuff like that and all. But it really goes down into this power struggle between Jim Barnett and Ole Anderson in terms of the finances in relation to Georgia Championship Wrestling. Georgia Championship Wrestling obviously was the hardest nut to crack at the time because it was the most successful one at the time in the NWA. They were doing great things. They had syndicated TV. They were across the whole of American national TV and all that kind of stuff. So they had everything in place to grow and get bigger and all that kind of stuff. And you had Ole Anderson in there, and obviously the Briscoes bought shares in it and all that kind of stuff. Jim Barnett was heavily involved. He was the man. They described him as the man, one, not the cross, but one. He was the man who had the links. He was the one who had the in for the TV deals and the stars and all that kind of stuff. And it shows pictures of him with Jimmy Carter and various other people and stuff like that and all. So it's very interesting to see the power that he had at the time. But yeah, Vince, of course, he's in the background, and of course he's planning this global plan to take over the world, basically, get rid of all the territories and put that plan together. And how could he do it and stuff like that? So obviously he needed Jim Barnett. Jim Barnett falls out with Ole Anderson and obviously leaves over the finances and everything else that was going on. But Jim Barnett, not a man to be crossed, goes and works for Vince and starts plotting basically with Vince the downfall of the territories, but especially Georgia Championship Wrestling. He wasn't happy at all with the way things ended, and he wanted to get revenge on Ole Anderson. Vince begins with Jim Barnett to use kind of, let's say, the darker side of business, let's say, to excuse the pun and stuff like that. So Vince started going in, taking down these territories. Any of them that had TV deals, he would buy out the TV deals. He was, interrupting shows in terms of ticket sales and all that, walk-ups and all, with, the use of maybe, raids and all that kind of stuff. Then he started looking at talent, and he was asking for tapes of talent and stuff like that. When they didn't send in tapes of their best guys and stuff like that, he'd basically go and sign them. We've seen it with the Junkyard Dog and various others. So this is how he was dissolving down the territories. And then it came, of course, to that, the Black Friday situation. Of course, he brokered the deal with the Briscoes to get 61%, I think it was, of Georgia Championship Wrestling. And of course Ole Anderson went ballistic. He had created a blood pact oath deal. We see it in Dark Side. It was absolutely crazy. These lads slicing each other up to do a blood oath deal, which obviously fell apart because Ole reneged on some of the payments that the Briscoes were expecting. So they went to Vince, sold their share, told Vince that he would take control of Georgia Championship Wrestling, and then the rest is kind of history. Vince kind of came in, let everyone go, told them they no longer had jobs. Ole was out of the way. Then Ole sold his share, obviously, to Vince. He really had no choice at that stage. It was that, or he'd end up getting overthrown with nothing, and Vince had just really shut it down. Vince wanted the TV contract more than anything. So Vince then goes on TV and then makes the announcement, and starts broadcasting other matches that he had on tape and stuff like that instead of Georgia Championship Wrestling matches. So the crowd were the audience were a bit taken aback and all this kind of stuff, and there was people ringing in and complaining all that was nearly riots and all that kind of stuff, because they were used to a certain style of wrestling in Georgia, and obviously what Vince was doing with the WWF was slightly different, so they didn't take to it straight away. He signed a deal with Turner, and after about a year Turner wanted the deal gone, so Vince then went and sold the TV rights to Jim Crockett, what became Jim Crockett Promotions, basically Jim Crockett Senior, and the rest is kind of history and the way it kind of took off. But it really was that Black Saturday where people were let go, and basically Vince took full control of the airwaves, basically. And once he had the TV deals, it was going to be very difficult for anyone else to prosper. And then from there on, he just went from territory to territory to territory, just tearing it down brick by brick, basically, till he had full control of everything, to what we see today, which is WWE. And then they talk at the end of the show, which is kind of interesting. I didn't think they were going to go there with this at all, but they talk at the end of the show. Obviously, they touch on the fact that Ole may have hired a hitman, allegedly, to take out the Briscoes and stuff like that. And the Briscoes were interviewed talking about how they were in fear of their life and all that kind of stuff. So this was cutthroat stuff. And we heard it before with the Harley Race episode as well. If you try and move in on someone's territory, how they felt about it and how they reacted to it was huge. But then they go in a little bit deeper. I didn't think they'd go full circle right up to current day, and they actually covered the fact that what happened with Vince and the allegations and everything, and how he ended up, he didn't want to sell the company and all, but he got moved out and all that kind of stuff, and then he came back for the merger, and then after the merger he sold his stock to TKO, and out the door he basically went. All these allegations going on, and it's mad the way how they touch on it, how things go full circle, how he kind of screwed everyone over back then and stuff like that, and then eventually gets screwed over himself. So karma and the way all these things work out and stuff like that. But the £1 million he got off Jim Crockett and stuff, he used that £1 million obviously to fund WrestleMania 1, and then from there they were just off to the races. No one could compete after WrestleMania. That was it. So it's a really interesting story. Lots more detail in it and stuff like that. Definitely check it out. But it's a real battle between the power of Vince and what he wanted to achieve against the old territory system. And you've different views on that from some of the older generations, stuff like that. Some of them on the show turn around and talk about how it was inevitable, it was going to happen, and that if he didn't do it, Jim Cornette would have done it, or Turner would have done it, or whoever it was, and the fact that it was him. And then they talk to one of the old timers there, and they talk about how he everyone did well out of him, became millionaires, and he said no, about 3% did. He said the rest kind of fell on really, really hard times and stuff like that. Yeah, so it's very interesting. I like Jim Cornette in it, as well as the historian that he is. He touches on a lot of really good stuff, makes some really, really good points. And obviously we know that having control of TV and TV slots and TV deals, that's where you live or die as a promotion and stuff back then and all. And it was really, really interesting to talk about how the NWA, the council met, and how Vince and Jim Barnett just resigned, and that obviously sent shockwaves through it and stuff like that. And even the way they touch on when Ole met with Vince and stuff like that, and Vince introduced Linda as his wife, and Ole basically told him and Linda to go fuck themselves, basically, and all. Crazy times. I can't imagine what it was like. It was really, truly probably the wild west of wrestling at the time and stuff like that. But I can't imagine the fear that was going through these territories at the time, as Vince just consumed them like this all-encompassing monster. But let us know your thoughts if you watched it. That rounds out season 5. Not too sure what happens with season 6, or if it's going to happen, but we do have coming up in June a 4-parter on WCW that The Rock got involved in with the boys from Dark Side of the Ring as well. So we look forward to watching that and reviewing that. But until next time, folks, let us know your thoughts. How did you feel about season 5 of Dark Side of the Ring? 10 episodes, came in kind of waves. There was some interesting stuff in there. You get a bit of sadness, you get a bit of darkness, you get a bit of everything in between, really. Let us know your thoughts. Is there anything that sticks out? What are you taking away from season 5? What were the episodes that hit the points for you and all that kind of stuff? That's it, folks. Season 5 in the bag. Until next time, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification button, and drop a like on the video, and we will talk to you again real soon. Cheers.